So, is it still good morning? I know we've been told many times that 12 o'clock we have to break for lunch, so we're conscious of time. You know, I'm really pleased to come back here with AB and Yanyap and visit you in Siem Reap and here in Phnom Penh. I have very special memories of Cambodia because I was here from 92 to 99 during the UNCTAD period and during the 97 events. And to be honest, I'll be very honest with you, that my career really was made in Cambodia. And so we were able to do really exciting and innovative things. And I very much was touched by Cambodian culture, as you guys have probably noticed. And it really made a big difference in my life. So I'm always pleased to be here. But we're talking about the CSP, and you know, part of my role is also to kind of give you some ideas and some thoughts as you move forward. And probably, I hope I don't mess up any of your procedures and processes here. But you know, I think there's a lot of great things that are happening with the Cambodia program, in the sense that you've grown from, I think, 6 or 7 million just a few years ago. I remember when I was in Vietnam, in fact, I remember, Brian, we were like, oh, Cambodia's rather small, there's so much opportunity in Cambodia, why are they so small? But in the last 4 years, you've gone from 6 million to 21 million, and that's really impressive. And I think when we look at a country like this, which is relatively a small country, 14 million people, it really is a testimony of some really great projects. And I think we saw some really good projects these last couple of days. I was impressed by talking to some family that we met with the Empowering Families Project up in Siem Reap. That was exciting. I saw we saw the English training for youth, which was interesting because of the volunteerism and the fact that young people were volunteering to teach other kids English. And then we saw a parenting class, which they showed us the progress that had been made. And so I think there's a lot of good stuff that you're doing there and things to be proud of. And probably the third area of things I think you should be proud about is that I've known for years that Plan Cambodia is, if not the best, one of the best international NGOs in Cambodia. You're certainly, I think, the second largest in the country, and you've been invited on numerous occasions, and I think in the past have sat on committees with the Prime Minister in terms of addressing his child rights issues with Prime Minister Hun Sen. So that is really a testimony, I think, to all the great work that you have done. And that's probably my point here, is that, you know, everybody contributes to a great program. From the drivers taking care of us and driving us around, or driving you around, to the finance people, to the sponsorship, to the PSM, to the country director. All of you are really part of making a great program. So I think all the good things we see is because of all of you and all your staff. The other thing is, I think you must be doing something right, because Cambodia is one of the most visited country offices in the Plan world, I think. I certainly know in Asia it's one of the most visited all the time. And I think that just shows that, this is a great country, there's good things going on, people want to come here and support you. So let me share a few things. We've been talking about global strategy. Last week we were in a regional management meeting. We talked about regional issues. I read an Asian Development Bank report last week that says by 2050, okay, so that's 35 years from now, Asia will represent 50% of the world's GDP. By 2050, Asia will represent 50% of the world's GDP. And that means a lot in terms of the balance of power around the world, which traditionally has been Europe and Americas, but that 50% of the world's GDP will be in Asia, driven by China, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, of course, Philippines, and Vietnam. So that means a lot, and it means a lot of opportunity in the growth of Asia. But despite the growth of Asia, I think, everybody knows that Asia is moving ahead very quickly in terms of increasing incomes, reducing poverty, particularly income poverty. But if there's one thing that I think Asia has not done as well in, is around the area of protection. And particularly child protection, but protection in general. And when we were visiting, I think, the countryside, we were struck by, particularly one statistic in one village, about the number of cases, 45 cases, I guess, in the last year, just reported cases of domestic violence. And that when we asked the kids about what their priorities were, that was their number one priority, was violence and abuse. And knowing a little bit about Cambodian history, violence is a really big issue. And so when you go about looking at your strategy, that issue about the underlying causes of poverty and all the issues and some socioeconomic problems of the country, don't forget this issue in terms of violence against particularly women and children. And what are the root causes of that? And how can we, in some small way, try to overcome that? And I know that's a complicated one because underlying causes of violence is not an easy thing to solve, but I think it needs to be high up on our agenda. Second, there is a major trend going on, and I don't know to what extent it's a problem in Cambodia, but I was with Sakon. So was it? Yes. You don't stand up. But I was with the ECCD people last week in China. 2 weeks ago, and they have a big problem with migration. And it's pretty hard to believe, but in China, because of migration, they have 60 million children. 60 million children who have been left behind by their parents. And they may see their parents once a year, sometimes never. And I know that that's happening in Cambodia. I don't know the extent to it, but the Asia Economic Community has been formed this year, and slowly it is becoming more of an issue where you'll have the free flow, eventually, of labor across borders. It's happening already. We see it in Bangkok. And so, and the tendency is that labor, the parents leave. Either first the father, second the mother, sometimes the child. But when we've traveled here in the past, we've seen cases where large numbers of young people being left behind by their parents, parents coming home, vacation. This is not just Cambodia. It's not unique to Cambodia. If you go to northeast Thailand, you have the same thing happening. Parts of Burma, we see that happening. Of course, I already mentioned to you China. So I think that I think it's something just to look at and to take note of, because when children are left behind by their grandparents or other caregivers, they are much more vulnerable to abuse. Third or fourth on my list here was two things that are taking place which are relevant to Cambodia. One is climate change and the rise in sea levels, right? As it affects the Mekong, as it goes into the Mekong Delta, pushing water back up, salt water back up into the Tonle Sap and the Basak, and also the damming of the Mekong to the north, Laos, China. Cambodia's lifeline is water, right? In terms of both fish and rice. So I just wonder how this is going to develop over time and what impact this will have on those communities that, well, most of Cambodia that is affected by the Basak rivers, Mekong, and of course, in Tonga South. I don't have a particular solution to this or idea about it, but it's just a reflection that this is going to have an enormous impact. Because Cambodia is basically one huge watershed. And if that's changed, if that system is changed, what will that mean for Cambodian people? 14 million people are dependent on water that makes up Cambodia. And then last is another trend that we see going around in this region. If it was from Pakistan to Indonesia to China to Cambodia and most of our countries, we're dealing with this issue about we say, shrinking space for international organizations like Plan, or international civil society. In China, we have a new NGO law. Pakistan, we have changes in terms of rules and regulations. Indonesia, we're being pushed to localize into a local institution by the government. Cambodia, you also have a law that's pending or has been ratified. So we see this quite clearly, is that our ability to operate in many countries is being challenged. Big issue. Registration, taxation, visas, all sorts of areas. We have to take this into consideration. So then, some quick things about your program I would like to just share with you as part of your CSP process. First one, I think you guys know very well. You're very widely dispersed. Right? You knew this one was coming, right? You're doing a lot of things, some things very well, maybe some things not so well. I get a sense of that you have some good projects that could even be better, that even could be greater, but you're spread rather thin across a large number of grants. And so I think looking for focus, and I would say intensify your work doing fewer things. Or better say, maybe you may be able to do more by doing less. Okay? So try to do less programs and projects, but do it better, more intensely. So in your sanitation program, looking at bringing in, not necessarily doing new projects, but just intensifying what you're doing, new components of sanitation. Perhaps whether it's sanitation marketing or nutrition aspects of sanitation, I don't know. But that would be one. Two, our program quality policy, I think, is really relevant for Cambodia. But in particular, my point to be made here is around we need much more evidence of the outcomes. A lot of great activities, but my question is, what outcome? Education, education, education. Are people learning more? Are kids learning more from what we're doing? Do we have evidence of that? Third, and I think is always relevant for CSP, as you're working more and more with the 60-some partners that you have, what is Plan Cambodia, Plan International Cambodia, what is your value added in terms of working with partners? What do you bring to the partners? Hopefully it is not financial systems, okay? But that you're bringing something more than just our systems and procedures, that you're bringing really, you're adding value to what they're doing. You don't want to do their work. You want to add value to the work. What is it? And I think that's something you want to articulate in your CSP. The last two things is around maybe three things. One small little thing is your CSP needs to represent Cambodia. Be careful that it's not, be careful that when it's written, I cannot take out the word Cambodia and put the word Tanzania, and it's the same thing. You know what I mean? Meaning it needs to be contextualized within the history and the culture of Cambodia, right? It has to be, it has to reflect the country. Yeah? Not just, when you read the CRSA, it's a lot of numbers. Those numbers could be any country around the world. But I think as you write it, and you look at your programs, think of it in terms of what is the context of Cambodia. When I flew here, I was trying to think, you know, what are the basic things in Cambodia?